What's going on, guys? Got another breakdown video for you today. Today we're going to be going over Landon Willis, going through our 4 lower half phases again. So going to be doing a little bit more drawing today because Landon's a really good example of a good lower half. So going to be taking this through the drift. Starting with the drift, you can see that there is a clear drift. If we look at the back hip angle right here, we take us through to peak leg lift right here, peak leg lift. Take a look at now there's our back hip. So we're getting down the mound just a little bit with a drift of about 2 to 3 inches, which is all we need. Perfect, concise drift, nothing crazy, very small, compact, it's all we need. Okay, going down to the drop phase. You can see there's a definite drop just by looking at his hat right here. You see how much he drops into that back leg, sits back, and uses the slope to our advantage. Very good drop, very clear drop. And what does the drop do for us? The drop allows us to see if we're utilizing that back leg. Right here, you can look at that back leg angle to be able to help us load the hips, load the glutes, to help us produce force as we move down the mountain. That's going to allow for much more velocity as if we were to just fall down the mound or collapse that back knee. You can see Landon's doing a really good job of externally rotating, holding the tension in the back leg, so we can unleash it at foot strike. It's a really good drop right here. Going into now the rotation phase, going into foot plant right here. As you can see, very clear, very good hip rotation. Okay, looking at the back leg or back foot, fully flipped, and then looking at our belt buckles pointing towards the catcher. That's how we know our hips are fully rotated. So really good job at the rotation. Now we look at our last one, our lead leg block. What we're looking for here is this front knee. Our front knee, as soon as we get to full foot strike, we want to see that knee stabilize and extend as we anchor down and rotate into the throw. So, as you can see here, kneecaps set. We're full force bearing in our front foot. And it's locked in, it's not moving. So really good job, perfect example of a really good lead leg block. Okay, so went through our 4 lower half phases. So what's next? We're gonna look at now the upper half. So we've got 2 things we wanna look at with the upper half, and that's load and separation, okay? So first one being separation, or not separation, load. How do we know we're loading our scaps? Okay, how do we know we're going into a good scap load? You can see from right here, I want you to take a look at the elbows and what they're doing. Okay, elbow right here, we're equal and opposite right here. What are they doing as we go into foot strike? You can see them come back, and that's getting a good scap load right here. Okay, you can see both the glove side and the throwing arm side are both loaded as we go into front foot strike. They're loaded and we're ready to unleash and power through the throw. So that's how we load our scaps right there. Really nice job. And now we're going to talk about separation. And that's going to be our hip shoulder separation. So what does that look like? How do we know our hips and shoulders are separated? Okay, so what we're going to do here is, if we were looking at Landon from the top, looking down on Landon, here's our home plate right here. So let's go ahead and move him to front foot strike right here. Take a look at the hips. Here's the angle of our hips right here. So here's the angle of Landon's hips right here at front foot strike. There's his hips. Now we look at his shoulders. Shoulders are somewhere right in here. And what's our hip shoulder separation? That's going to be this right here. So this angle, being able to maximize this angle right here is going to help us maximize our hip shoulder separation. So what does that look like? Okay, so this right here, this point right here, that's his back shoulder. Okay, and then this point right here is his back hip. So separating these two as much as possible is going to be able to help us maximize our hip shoulder separation. So what does it look like when we don't have good hip shoulder separation? Going to make another graph right here. Home plate. Okay, if we're not rotating the hips, our hips are late. Okay, we're not getting those hips through like Landon does right here, and they're still back behind us. We're not rotating them through. It's going to look a little bit like this. Okay, so now we look at the hips. They're not rotated. They're still back right here. Okay, and our shoulder is going to be very similar. So it's back as well. So now we're somewhere in right there. And now we look at the angle of our hips and shoulders, very small. Okay, so being able to maximize our hip shoulder separation is going to help us maximize our peak velocity, right? Hip shoulder separation, 80% of our velocity is going to be through hip shoulder separation. So as you can see, Landon does a really good job of that. And so really what I have for you is only two things that I see, and they're very small. So what I want you to look at is our front foot. So we're looking at front foot as it goes into front foot strike. I want you to look at how flexed it is. So right here, let's go ahead and get somewhere where his heel hits the ground. So heel's hitting the ground right here, but the rest of our foot's not ready, okay? The rest of our foot's not ready to put force and rotate up until about 2 more frames where our heel's on the ground, but the rest of our foot is not, okay? So what does that mean in terms of the throw or the rest of our body? I want you to look at where we are right here in terms of where our head is and the center of our body. Right here, really good position right here, stacked. Okay, head's over our center of mass. And then as we go into, let's first look at heel strike. Heel strike right there. Still pretty stacked, okay? I want you to watch where your head goes and where kind of your torso goes as we go into our full front foot strike right here, okay? So now let's make a line from the center of our body to now our head, okay? And you can see how it's very slight, but I think we're a little early with our torso here, okay? So we're a little out front. I'd like to see you a little more stacked like you were in the delivery moving down. So if you were to stay right here stacked, right? Head's over our center of body, center of mass. We're moving down the mound. And I think what's causing this is because we're landing with our heel. Okay, once our heel hits, I think our body's telling us, okay, it's time to rotate. It's time to go, okay? Time to rotate and throw. But we're not ready until now. And at this point, we're a little ahead of ourselves. Head's a little out front. Torso's got a little bit too much extension before we're ready to unleash. Okay? So I would say stay a little more stacked and try and work on getting that entire foot down instead of just the heel, so we can be in a slightly better position to be able to rotate and unleash all of our potential energy that we just produced through the back leg. Okay, but everything else is really good, really solid. If you're a right-handed pitcher in high school and middle school looking for what does my lower half need to look like, I think this is a great example right here.